had more jobs, James Palmer or Mark Schlereth, but I suspect that James has inched ahead in that head-to-head duel. Good morning, James. How are you?
I'm tremendous, guys, and we'll never stop doing this. This will always be one of the jobs.
This is fun, and I can't wait to get your perspective on the Devon Bailey trade.
Oh, yeah, because you're talking to a big Devon Bailey fan here. And when you mentioned the jobs, my co-host on 89, which we were filming a wide receiver episode yesterday, there's a little hint of what's coming with Steve Smith Sr. Steve is a massive Devon Bailey fan. Maybe it's a little bit of the Utah connection between the two, but he really, really likes Devon Bailey's game. And I think, it's interesting they got what they got. I think it's more than anybody expected, but usually that happens when you have multiple teams interested. And I kind of thought this was something that could possibly happen as we're sitting in the press box watching the game in Denver, the preseason game number 2 going. Pat Bryant can play. Look at the block down the field. Like Troy Franklin, the jump, I think there's been enough time now to say is real in year 2. Like there's a numbers game going on here, and if you can get something for somebody in that room, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to entertain it. And this is about the time, in the calendar where that happens right before cuts, where you try to really go out and get somebody. And there were teams interested in receivers. There still are several teams interested in receivers. And you look at the age part of it as well, which probably played against Vele in this room. And I think everybody kind of came out a winner here. When you're trying to regroup down in New Orleans, I think he helps that. You needed a big body receiver down there. He helps that. You got to help the quarterback down there. And you had a plethora of guys in that room. And now you come out on top with some draft capital. I think it's kind of a win for both sides. And, I think it's a testament of what's happened with some of these younger guys that are about, 22, 23 years old, and Bryant and Troy Franklin.
You speak of testament. It's a testament to what kind of roster they have built there in Denver. And obviously there were some trades that went on. Minnesota had a trade with Harrison Phillips. Sky Moore left the Kansas City Chiefs to go to San Francisco. You look at this roster, how much more movement and how much do other teams covet some of the backup players the Broncos have currently constructed on their roster?
That's a really good question. I honestly think like the thing that I hear around the league is the back end of this roster is pretty good. And I think that's been a big difference from when Sean Payton first got here. And now you have an opportunity where maybe the defensive line's a little bit deep. I think the running back room's kind of deep. I'm probably the Brian Robinson situation is going to be the headliner there before there's any sort of movement at that position maybe. But those are two position groups I kind of have my eye on to where teams could be looking and seeing if they could snag somebody on the backside. But I think that's a really, really big thing we should talk about in terms of what it means for George Payton and Sean Payton in their short time together and how they've been able, this league is built off of stars, but you win a lot of championships by the depth of your team because everybody's getting injured at some point. And I think, health of this offensive line has been a big part of their success last year. Does that continue? Like all of that is about wins and losses, and your depth is a big, big part of that.
James, the Broncos have a game here in about 26 and a half hours down in New Orleans, and normally preseason game number 3 is about position battles on the back end of the roster, but Sean Payton's going to play the starters 8 to 10 plays or so. How critical is it in your eyes that Bo Nix and the first team offense go and put together a nice drive after struggling in San Francisco and being down 9-0 after the first quarter?
Yeah, I think we have to see it, honestly. I mean, it's not make or break of the season or week 1 or anything like that, but I think you really want to see it. I mean, this New Orleans team stinks. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I think they have the worst odds of any team in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. I mean, they're not very good. And so as they're trying to figure out who their quarterback's going to be for 2025, they're the only team that hasn't decided it yet. I think this offense needs to go down and just like march down the field. And we need to see something from some of these playmakers and maybe an explosive play or two. I also don't mind if it's a methodical thing down the field, but I need to see like a lot of really good operation from this offense. And again, it's not paramount to the season, but I think you want to see it when you look at the opponent and you look at that you're playing your starters in the third preseason game. I think we all just really, really want to see it because we all want to be believers in the local hype and more importantly, maybe even the national hype that the Broncos are getting. You want to be sold that a little bit before the start of the season. And I think this is the opponent that you really should be able to do it against.
Visiting with James Palmer. James, I love having the Bronco conversations with you, but you got your ear to the ground when it comes to the entire NFL, so I'd love to get your perspective on some other big NFL stories, including what are you hearing about what's going on in Cleveland? Shedeur Sanders gained a chance to make another preseason start. He's currently third now on their depth chart. There's been reports that the Browns are prepared to carry 4 quarterbacks. What are you hearing about Shedeur's situation in Cleveland?
Yeah, Zach and I got into this on Tuesday. Whoo-wee about Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I think they will keep 4 quarterbacks, and it's for 2 reasons. One, Kenny played really, really well before he got hurt. He actually had a legitimate chance, to my understanding, to possibly beating out Flacco. But you allow him to be there if something happens to Flacco in the first week or 2 or 3 that early in the season, and he can go out there and play meaningful snaps for you as he's been around the league, as opposed to one of these rookies having to go in, and neither one, to my understanding, is ready to play that early in the season. So I think that's part of why you keep Kenny Pickett. And the other one is you have trade bait. He could go down to New Orleans. He could go somewhere else, and I think that allows you to have him and be able to use him in terms of some currency. And then with both Shedeur and Dylan, it's kind of like Dylan has been ahead the entire time in terms of understanding everything, the operation, to my understanding, the line of scrimmage, all of that stuff. He's been ahead of Shedeur. I think Shedeur's preseason game was obviously important, but I know the people in the building didn't view it the same way as maybe the public perception viewed it. They were a little more level-headed about the performance, I would say, when I talked to people there. But they like the progression he's had. They like the growth he's had. He's come along the way that they expected, so they're happy with it. I think he really did miss out with the joint practices in Philly. Like, I was texting people I knew in Philly. It's like, you got to tell me how the Shedeur joint practice goes. I mean, you got a really good defense. You got a really good secondary. Like, let me know. And he ends up getting hurt, doesn't do that, doesn't do the preseason game. But I do think he's gained ground on Gabriel, for sure. But I do think they still believe right now, if you ask them, Dylan Gabriel is going to play meaningful snaps, NFL snaps this season, and they're still curious if Shedeur is going to.
The Giants, Jackson Dart, obviously Russell Wilson, who was a quarterback here in Denver for a long time, or 2 years, 2 of the most painful years I've ever watched. But Jackson Dart playing really well. The Giants seem to, defensively, they're really good. What are you hearing about Jackson Dart and the plan at the quarterback position in New York?
Yes, I think you can probably agree with me on this. I think this is a much better football team than people are realizing heading into this season. The front 7 is outstanding. They made some changes on the backside. If the O-line can play well, and we all know that Neighbors has the ability to be maybe a star already in year 2, Dart has done everything you've asked him to do. I was joking with a veteran quarterback the other day on the phone going, has anybody had a better preseason than Jackson Dart? And he was like, yeah, there's one guy, Jarrett Stidham. I was like, that's actually kind of true. Stiddy's had an outstanding preseason. And some teams are interested in him, by the way. I don't think Denver gives him up, but I think there's some teams I've talked to that are interested in Stidham and would love to have him come into their building. But with Dart, they know the way the season is. And I think Gable did a really good thing by naming Russell Wilson the starter out of the gate. So there's no questions to our camp, and that's the way it's going to be. And you look at the way the regular season starts with the Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers, Saints, Eagles, Broncos, Eagles. Like, that's a murderer's row, and there's a lot of really good defenses there. I don't think you want to throw Jackson Dart out at the beginning of the season in that, and I think that's kind of what Dable's thinking. And he was part of that first year with Josh Allen, and he knows what he had to do when Josh Allen played sooner than they wanted him to play in Buffalo, and he was running that offense, and he did a lot of things to help him succeed. And he's doing the same things with Dart, doing a lot of stuff he did at Ole Miss, and he looks really, really good. We're going to see him this year. I think that's the case, because when I talk to people around the league, one of the things that's really missing in Russell Wilson is, your list is probably longer than mine, Mark, but the intermediate throws are just not there anymore. Like, layering stuff just isn't there. The accuracy in that stuff, the arm strength in that stuff isn't there. The moon ball's still there because you don't have to be as accurate with it, but there's some deficiencies that are continuing to grow there. And we're going to see Dart, I think, maybe when they get through some of that difficulty in the early portion of the season. I think it's going to be fun to watch.
James, don't worry about getting into it with Zach By earlier this week. Go back and listen to the end of the Cecil and Dover show and the beginning of The Drive, and you'll realize Zach's not even thinking about you right now. So you're good. You're good. Okay?
I gotta go tune in. All right.
Go. Yeah, you're fine. You don't have to look over your shoulder. Thank you, James.
Take it easy.
James Palmer joining us. It's an Is It